So the question is, how do you differentiate in a generative AI era? And one of the ways I think businesses can differentiate is through considering most businesses in recent years have differentiated based on customer experience, but generative AI is potentially going to change all of that entirely. If you think about most businesses in most sectors are pretty much exactly the same. If you're a bank, all banks do the same stuff. Most car manufacturers are all the same. A lot of the cars are built on the same chassis. They use the same engines. You can't differentiate on the product itself. You can't differentiate on the brand itself anymore unless you've got a particularly strong brand like Apple or Nike or something similar. So it's experience, and the experience layer has really been where businesses have been able to create some kind of differentiation. I can't tell you how many banks that I've moved from because of the poor online experience. But with the generative AI technologies that exist today, the value of providing great experiences is still just as valuable as it was before. There are so many terrible IVR systems. There are so many terrible chatbots. But if everybody is using the same models, then does that mean that over time the experience of having these conversations becomes homogenized and becomes so similar that if you're talking to Direct Line, you may as well be talking to Hastings because they're all using the same fundamental models that are all doing the same kind of stuff. The only difference is really that your answer is going to be slightly different based on the policy. There is a risk here that everybody using all of the same technology creates this homogeneous, albeit working, experience that then makes it very difficult to differentiate. So the question is, how do you differentiate in a generative AI era? And one of the ways I think businesses can differentiate is through considering creating their own fine-tuned models for specific capabilities. Large language models are going to become more capable, although potentially there's a plateau that we're going to see there. But needless to say, large language models can do a lot of the tasks that you need them to do. They can vectorize content so that you can use retrieval augmented generation. They can create summaries of multiple documents to answer complex user questions. They can classify intents, for want of a better phrase, to understand what people mean when they say whatever it is that they say. They can do things like entity extraction to take out, important information from a customer utterance. They can do things that NLU systems couldn't do very well, which is process long user inputs. If someone writes you an essay or sends you an email, traditional NLU systems have often struggled to understand what to do with those things. So large language models are incredibly capable and can do a lot of this stuff very well. The problem is that they don't do it very fast. So if you wanted to have an experience that runs on the voice channel, for example, either a voice interface that runs in an app or something that you can call and speak to, the inference time of large language models tends to be a little bit too long. And also the cost of the inference on a large language model is typically going to be a lot higher than it would be if you were to use another model of some other description. With a small language model, for example, a fine-tuned small language model, you might find that you can get faster performance. You might find that you can secure it a bit better and run it on your own servers rather than using APIs and pinging it off to some unknown cloud somewhere. You can fine-tune them a lot more easily, which means that you can customize them for very specific use cases. And if you think about customers and users that are going to talk to your business, the fundamental first thing you've got to get right is you have to be able to understand them. I think that where businesses are going to end up, and this is the direction that you should be trying to move in, is you need to have a channel strategy in place, which means that regardless of where customers contact you on, regardless of what channel that is, whether it's through social media, whether it's sending you an email, calling your contact center, or using the live chat on your website, or using your chatbot, or in your mobile app, wherever they go, the first thing that they're going to hit is going to be your AI assistant or AI agent, if you want to give it that term. That AI assistant's first primary job is going to be understanding what it is you're trying to get done and matching that to something that the business can help you with. Often, that's not going to be something that it can help you with directly. If you send a bank a message on Instagram and you're asking it to transfer some money or what have you, It's not going to do that on Instagram messaging because it can't authenticate you, and that's just not going to happen. So it might then suggest that actually for this you may as well use the app. Or if you call your bank and the bank knows that you're registered for mobile banking and it can see that you're logged in on your mobile bank, it might just send you a push notification once it understands your intent, so that you can just get that thing done in the banking app rather than taking time away from people who would otherwise answer the phone and take time away from other people who would need that service more. So one of the ways in which a business can differentiate using AI is to do something like that, which is to customize certain models to be able to provide certain capabilities better than you would find in an off-the-shelf vendor and better than your competitors can do so. Classification is just one example. Triaging is another example. Entity extraction is a marginal gain because ultimately there's going to be lots of models that are going to be able to do that kind of thing. But you can see what I'm getting at. Where is it in your business that you believe you have either intellectual property or the ability to create significant value through having your own fine-tuned model? For me, that's the area of differentiation. It's still at the experience layer, but it's in being smarter and more intelligent than what you're likely to find from all of the rest of the competitors that you've got. Most of your competitors today are going to be using retrieval augmented generation. That's going to be where their use of generative AI starts and stops. And the problem with retrieval augmented generation in a business context is that although it can answer questions, it doesn't have an awareness of the conversation. It doesn't understand whether this question that's come from a customer is a sales-based question, whether it's a support-based question. It doesn't understand what products and services sit underneath that request, really. It's just looking for patterns in a semantic similarity based on content that you've got. So it can't understand where the customer is in their journey. It can't marry together the products and services that you have against that stage of the journey, and therefore it can't actually be useful. So if in a telco example, if I say something like, how do I go about upgrading my account or upgrading my contract? The retrieval augmented generation response to that is going to be, simple, to upgrade your contract, all you need to do is go and pay off your other contract and then find a phone and take out a new contract, full stop. And this is what I call the full stop problem, which is that it doesn't understand that what I'm telling you there is that I'm talking about renewing my contract. That's a revenue-based conversation. What you should be doing, instead of ending that response with a full stop, is you should be saying, have you found a phone that you like? Do you want to log in and let me look up your account information? Let's see how long you got left on your contract. Let's move the conversation forward. And so these are the areas I think that businesses can differentiate on. One, you can understand customers better potentially by having your own fine-tuned models that understand far more effectively. Second, triaging users and customers to the most appropriate channel where they can get their issues resolved. Third, in conversation, being a lot more sensible and intelligent about having awareness of the customer journey and the real needs they're trying to get solved. And then fourth, crafting really compelling, really natural, engaging, fluid, easy to use, effortless experiences that help customers get stuff done there and then in channel. So it's an interesting time, and it's a time where most businesses are scrambling just to get some generative AI use cases off the ground. That's where you're going to find the homogeny. What you really need to be doing is focusing more on the experience.